We're back with Michelle Lujan Grisham. We're talking about her congressional run, and we'll take it back from where we're talking about your primary and stuff. We'll move on from there. Actually, we'll try to get a little bit into your congressional run now. How are you feeling now, as far as your run goes?
Well, we feel strong. We're very excited about this opportunity. You know, if elected, I'll be the first Native New Mexican Hispanic woman to ever hold a federal elected position, and I'm very proud of that fact. My family's been here since
12 generations.
12 generations we can prove. You know, my father used to like to kid that he thought it was more like 16 generations, but we can only trace it back so far with our family history and Bibles, so we go with what we've got, 12.
Great. So overall, you're feeling pretty good about your campaign. I know there is a lot of issues there. When you're on the campaign trail, what sort of questions are you getting as far as being a Democrat? What are they asking you personally?
Single issue. People are worried about their jobs. All right, so far too many New Mexicans are either out of work or just one step away from losing their job or benefits. And so that's the number one thing on people's mind. And in fact, I had a county commission meeting last night, and if you look at what we're doing on the county commission, 90% of the work that we're currently engaged in is trying to develop economic development investments and efforts that are resulting in real jobs today on the ground. And in fact, I'm very proud of this. In my district, in the last 2 years, I've had probably the most job growth with new economic development efforts in the North Valley and West Side. And we announced last night that we're investing a little bit more in Lowe's because they've already hired 500 people. That's not counting their construction jobs. And they're going to expand their operations and hire 300 more New Mexicans. So I'm really proud of that. People want to know about their jobs.
Exactly, yeah. What is the next thing that you're hearing? Are they concerned more about? I know the housing crisis and all that, the recession's been ongoing. You know, there's a little bit of growth there. Every quarter we are growing a little bit, but it's nothing substantial. How do you see the out years as far as the economy? You're going to Congress. There's a gridlock there. It's very difficult to work with the other side. Now, both sides are having that issue there. How do you foresee the foreseeable future? Do you see things improving?
I have to hope that things are going to improve. I have to tell you that I know that during this interview we'll talk a little bit about what some of the current budget efforts are and really just how polarized Congress has become and what that means in terms of the presidential election and how that filters down to my election for Congress.
Correct.
But I will tell you that I said I was an optimist. We have to fix the gridlock, and I have two proposals for that. One, I'm going to join every caucus and try to develop as many relationships that improve New Mexico's opportunities and the lives of working families here that I can. We're going to have to work on healthcare reform and immigration reform. We're going to have to work on economic recovery. We are going to have to make sure that big oil companies are paying their fair share, that we do something about the current tax inequities. Middle class and poor people are paying far too much. People who can afford to pay more are paying far too little, and we've got to do something about that. And we have to invest in the economy. So infrastructure efforts would be great. But in that regard, you can deal with the current federal deficit. We should have our eye absolutely on economic recovery that does something about the national debt. And I think you're right. Those efforts should be slow and ongoing. But the thing I can do immediately is there's hundreds of millions of dollars here today from the federal government, Sandia Labs, and for healthcare reform. I'm going to work right here to get those jobs and those efforts implemented in a meaningful way. And in that way, you can improve the economy and do something about jobs, whether or not Congress is moving in the right direction for New Mexico each and every time.
You did a lot of work for elderly. You have a pretty vast background there. How do you see the Paul Ryan, the recent VP pick with Romney? I know they see him as someone who's pretty radical when it comes to the Medicare and Social Security and all that. Do you feel that that you have a specific plan as far as Medicare and Social Security and all that?
Well,
that will be better in contrast to him?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, and thank you for pointing that out. You know, I've got more than a 20-year career in helping
many
seniors
years in
and their
elderly
families.
care. Correct.
That's right. I was appointed by Governor King, Governor Johnson, Governor Richardson to lead aging and long-term care and develop health and long-term care policies and opportunities for seniors. I can tell you that without Social Security, we will have poverty levels among a retiree population who is often already disenfranchised, disproportionately women, older women living alone, with significant health care needs and chronic health care issues. And I don't know what the plan is. I mean, they just get shifted into emergency rooms and into hospitals who are already teetering under the current financial design. If you're to retreat and cut Medicare and cut Social Security further, a population that's already growing too fast into poverty is all into poverty. And so I hope to draw a very sharp contrast, because I think the Ryan budget devastates social investments in our independence and, frankly, the future of that independence for far too many New Mexicans and all of our seniors and veterans. And I think people forget the impact that Medicare and Social Security has on younger disabled persons around the country.
I think he was talking about reforming. I know his plan calls for reforming Medicare and Social Security. I haven't studied his plan. I know you had. I'm sure you had a chance to study his plan, and you probably know a lot more than me. What exactly is it that the left is saying that is wrong with his plan?
Well,
most viewers like to know what it is exactly.
Several things. I mean, the first is he wants to change Medicare from a program that you're automatically entitled to into a program that's based on a voucher. So we're going to figure out who needs it, then we're going to make you compete for it, then you're going to get only a portion of the current benefits that would be available to you today. So all of the risk goes to the patient. And I will tell you that right now in Medicare, even with the best Medicare situations, you're underinsured. So as an example, my mom can't afford to make her copays, and she can't always afford her prescription drugs. And the Affordable Care Act actually closes a financial hole for prescription drug coverage. The Ryan budget makes those gaps bigger, much, much bigger. And he makes those financial risks and burdens all on those poorest, sickest seniors. And in fact, on average, most senior citizens will pay, on average, $6,000 more annually for their health care. And I'll tell you what that means. They won't afford it. They won't get it. They'll all be in hospitals. And then we're going to push folks much earlier into costly, terrible care like nursing homes and institutional settings. And what I mean by terrible care, it's very expensive, and it's not what people choose. People choose to live with dignity in their homes. And now they won't have those options anymore. We'll take them all away. And we've proven decade after decade that the more independent you are, better access you have, the better prevention you have, the less we're spending as a society. They're going to take all that away to have quick savings at the front end, and they're going to backload it so that the rest of the country is harnessed with really terrible outcomes and what I think is a devastating budget consequence.
The Affordable Care Act raises the deficit quite a bit. I know there was in the media for the last ever since it got passed. Were you surprised the Supreme Court upheld it? Were you surprised at that?
No, I'm going to tell you, I wasn't surprised. I was relieved, because I know that it is a step in the right direction. And while I think there's a healthy debate occurring about whether it's causing us to have more expenditures, which means that we're moving away from dealing with the federal deficit. But this is good policy where you're paying for things on the front end. They did lots of cost savings in Medicaid and Medicare, taking out waste, taking out fraud, reducing administrative overhead.
So there's a long-term savings to the nation.
Huge long-term savings by front-loading the things that are not expensive and giving people dignity as they're accessing health care. Because right now, you don't have dignity because you can't afford your access, so you're stuck without getting the care that you need. And again, I like to refer to my mom, and in fact, part of what got me into this environment is, my father and my mother didn't really have the financial means to take care of themselves because my sister was very sick, and they had to privately pay for her health care because there were no protections. So she had a pre-existing condition. Her lifetime caps were spent, in the first year of her illness. And it completely financially devastates families. Why would we do more of that in a Ryan budget. When the Affordable Care Act says, we don't want you to be bankrupt. We want you to be able to successfully manage when you're sick by protecting you and your financial resources.
Okay, hold that thought for a
All
second,
right.
and we're going to come right back. Okay, guys.